The stars looked different when Captain James Morrison first saw them through the viewport of humanity's newest ship. It was the year 2387, and humans had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. The breakthrough came after decades of work, and now the universe was open to them. Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, watching as his crew prepared for humanity's first contact with alien life. Earth's best scientists had detected signals from advanced civilizations scattered across the galaxy. After months of preparation, they were ready to meet their new neighbors. The ship dropped out of hyperspace near a massive space station. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built, made of gleaming metal that seemed to pulse with its own light. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. This was Nexus Prime, the capital of something called the Galactic Consortium. Morrison had practiced his first contact speech 100 times. Earth's leaders wanted to make a good impression. They brought gifts of human art, music, and technology. They came in peace, ready to join the galactic community. The response was not what they expected. A sleek alien ship approached the Endeavour. The creatures that came aboard were tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and large, cold eyes. They called themselves Zephyrians. Their leader introduced himself as Counselor Veltar. Veltar looked at the humans like they were insects he had found in his food. He spoke through a translation device, his voice carrying clear disgust. "So, these are the primitives from the third planet of Sol," Veltar said, walking around Morrison and his diplomatic team. "How unfortunate that you developed spaceflight before we could stop you." Morrison felt his stomach drop. This was not going according to plan. "We come in peace," Morrison said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Earth wants to join the galactic community. We have much to offer." Veltar laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Offer? What could savages like you possibly offer civilized beings? Look at you. You still have hair growing from your heads like animals. Your species is barely past throwing rocks at each other. The insults continued as Veltar and his team examined the human gifts. They sneered at Earth's art, calling it crude. They dismissed human technology as toys. When they heard recordings of human music, one of the aliens made a sound of disgust. "This noise hurts our ears," the alien said. "Do you call this culture?" Morrison clenched his fists but stayed calm. The other humans on his team looked angry and hurt, but they held their tongues. They had come too far to start a fight now. Veltar led them through the massive space station. Everywhere they went, other aliens stared at the humans. Some pointed and whispered. Others just looked away in disgust. There were 12 different alien species in the consortium, and none of them seemed happy to see humans. The Vorthak were different from the Zephyrians. They looked more like giant insects with hard shells and multiple arms. But they were just as dismissive of humanity. Their representative, General Thakmor, studied the humans like a scientist looking at bacteria. "They breed too quickly," Thakmor said to Veltar, as if the humans were not even there. "Their population grows without control. They fight wars over small patches of land. They poison their own planet with waste." Morrison tried to defend his species. "We've made mistakes, but we're learning. We've ended many of our wars. We're cleaning up our planet. We just need time to grow." Veltar and Thakmor looked at each other. Morrison did not like what he saw in their eyes. "Time," Veltar said slowly. "Yes, perhaps time is exactly what we need to discuss." The meeting that followed took place in the consortium's Great Council chamber. Representatives from all 12 species sat in a circle around the humans. Morrison and his team stood in the center like prisoners on trial. Veltar spoke to the assembled aliens, his voice echoing in the vast room. "Fellow beings of the consortium, we face a problem. These humans have developed space travel. They seek to spread across the galaxy like a disease. We have seen their history. They are violent, chaotic, and destructive. They will contaminate everything they touch." Morrison tried to interrupt, but guards stepped forward to silence him. "However," Veltar continued, "we are not without mercy. We offer the humans a choice. They may remain in their small corner of space within 50 light-years of their home world. They will not expand beyond this zone. They will not contact other species. They will not interfere with consortium business." The chamber fell silent. Morrison felt his heart racing. "And if we refuse?" Morrison asked. Veltar smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Morrison had ever seen. "Then we will solve the human problem permanently." Morrison and his team were escorted back to their ship. They were given 1 week to carry the consortium's ultimatum back to Earth. As the Endeavour pulled away from Nexus Prime, Morrison watched the massive station shrink in the distance. Earth's response came quickly. The United Earth government met in emergency session for 3 straight days. In the end, the answer was unanimous. Humanity would not accept exile in their own galaxy. The war began without warning. Human colonies had spread to dozens of worlds in the 50 years since faster-than-light travel was discovered. The consortium attacked them all at once. The aliens did not send armies. They did not land troops or fight battles. They simply erased human colonies from existence. Entire worlds were burned clean by weapons that turned matter into energy. Orbital habitats were vaporized in seconds. Millions of humans died before they even knew they were under attack. Earth itself was hit last. The planet's defenses, so carefully built over decades, lasted less than an hour. But the consortium did not destroy Earth completely. Instead, they used weapons that made the planet uninhabitable. The atmosphere became poison. The oceans boiled. The land cracked and burned. The surviving humans had no choice but to flee. Ships that were never meant for long journeys became arks carrying the last of humanity. Families were separated as people fought for space aboard anything that could fly. Children were loaded onto transport ships, never to see their parents again. Morrison found himself commanding a small fleet of refugee ships. His beautiful Endeavour was now crammed with frightened families. The ship's elegant conference rooms had become sleeping quarters. Its storage bays held everything humans could save from their dying world. As the last human ships left the solar system, Morrison looked back at Earth one final time. The planet that had given birth to his species was now a burning ball of rock. Everything humanity had built over thousands of years was gone. Veltar's final message followed them into the darkness of space. You chose extinction over wisdom. The alien's voice crackled over the radio. Perhaps other species will learn from your example. Let the universe forget you ever existed. The human fleet scattered in different directions. Some ships headed toward the galactic rim, where no one else wanted to live. Others dove toward the dangerous center, where radiation and black holes kept other species away. A few brave captains aimed for the spaces between galaxies, where only the desperate would follow. Morrison's ship joined a small group heading toward the outer darkness. As they jumped to hyperspace, he made a promise to the families under his care. They want us forgotten, he said over the ship's communication system. They want us to disappear into the dark and die quietly. But we are human. We do not die quietly. We will survive. We will remember. And someday we will return. The stars swallowed the last human ships, and the galaxy moved on as if humanity had never existed at all. Captain Sarah Chen had never seen Earth. She was born on a mining station built inside an asteroid, 200 years after the Great Exile. Her parents told her stories about blue skies and green grass. But to Sarah, home was the cold metal corridors of Haven Station. Haven was one of humanity's greatest achievements, though no alien would ever see it. The station was built inside a massive asteroid in the Kepler belt, hidden from scanning equipment by natural rock and careful engineering. From the outside, it looked like any other space rock. Inside, 50,000 humans lived and worked in a city that would have amazed the old Earth governments. Sarah walked through the station's central garden, where real trees grew under artificial sunlight. Children played in the grass while their parents tended to crops that fed the entire station. It was beautiful, but Sarah knew the truth. This paradise existed only because humanity had learned to survive where no one else could. The Kepler belt was a cosmic junkyard. Asteroids crashed into each other constantly, creating deadly storms of rock and metal. Radiation from a nearby pulsar made the region toxic to most known life forms. The consortium had written it off as worthless space centuries ago. That made it perfect for humans. Sarah's job was reconnaissance. She commanded a small, fast ship called the Silent Running. Her mission was simple but dangerous. She would sneak into consortium space, observe alien worlds, and bring back information to the Shadow Council. The Shadow Council was humanity's secret government. Representatives from every human settlement met once a year in the hidden depths of Haven Station. They shared resources, planned for the future, and gradually built something the galaxy had never seen before. Sarah's current assignment had taken her to the edge of Zephyrian space. She sat in her ship's pilot seat, watching a busy trade route through her telescopes. Alien ships moved back and forth carrying goods between worlds. It looked normal, but Sarah saw things the aliens missed. The ships were old. Really old. Some of them were using technology that human engineers would have considered antiques. The aliens were not innovating. They were not improving. They had grown comfortable and lazy in their success. Sarah made careful notes in her log. Ship designs, weapon configurations, patrol patterns. Everything the Shadow Council would want to know. She had been watching Consortium space for 5 years, and the pattern was always the same. The aliens had stopped advancing. Meanwhile, humanity had never stopped learning. Sarah's ship was a perfect example. The silent running was smaller than most alien vessels, but it was also far more advanced. Its hull was made from materials developed in the crushing gravity of neutron star systems. Its engines used power sources that humans had learned to tap in the radioactive zones around dying stars. Most importantly, the ship could become invisible. Not just to sensors, but to the naked eye. Human scientists had cracked the secret of bending light around objects. The silent running could fly right past an alien patrol ship without being seen. Sarah activated the cloak and moved deeper into Zephyrian space. Her destination was a world called Kethmoran, which the aliens claimed was impossible to attack. She wanted to see this famous fortress for herself. Kethmoran hung in space like a metal moon. The entire planet was covered in defensive installations. Massive guns pointed at the stars, ready to destroy any approaching enemy. Shield generators created overlapping barriers that could stop anything from asteroids to nuclear weapons. Sarah studied the defenses through her ship's advanced sensors. The weapons were powerful but slow. The shields were strong but old-fashioned. The whole system was designed to fight wars like the ones the Consortium had fought centuries ago. It would not work against modern human technology. Sarah made her notes and prepared to leave, but something caught her attention. Her sensors detected another ship in the system, one that was not supposed to be there. The ship was small and fast, built for stealth like her own vessel. But it was definitely not human. Sarah had never seen anything like it before. She followed the mysterious ship at a safe distance. It led her to a hidden facility on Kethmoran's largest moon. The facility was not on any official Consortium maps. Whatever was happening there, it was secret. Sarah moved closer, using her ship's best sensors to penetrate the facility's defenses. What she saw inside made her blood run cold. The facility was a prison. Thousands of beings were held there, members of species Sarah had never seen before. They were thin and weak, clearly suffering from poor treatment. Guards from the Consortium's member races kept them in line with energy weapons. These were not criminals. They were slaves. Sarah had discovered something the Consortium did not want the galaxy to know. Behind their claims of civilization and order, they were enslaving entire species. These prisoners were probably the survivors of worlds that had refused to join the Consortium willingly. Sarah recorded everything she saw, then carefully made her way back to human space. This information was too important to risk losing. The journey back to Haven Station took 3 weeks. Sarah spent the time thinking about what she had seen. The Consortium was not just arrogant and stagnant. They were evil. They talked about civilization while enslaving anyone who opposed them. The Shadow Council met an emergency session when Sarah delivered her report. The 12 representatives sat around a simple metal table in Haven's deepest levels. These were people who had lived their entire lives in exile, who had built new homes in the galaxy's most dangerous regions. Admiral Marcus Webb, the Council's military representative, studied Sarah's recordings with growing anger. Webb was old enough to remember the stories of Earth's destruction. His grandfather had been there when the last human ships fled their dying world. They have not changed, Webb said quietly. They are still the same monsters who burned our home. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the head of human intelligence, was more practical. The question is, what do we do about it? We have the numbers now. 50 hidden settlements across the galaxy, maybe 200 million humans in total. But they still have thousands of worlds and billions of soldiers. Sarah spoke up from her place at the table. With respect, Dr. Vasquez, I do not think their numbers matter anymore. I have been watching them for 5 years. They are weak. Their technology has not improved since the exile. Their fleets are slow and predictable. They only win because no one has challenged them. Webb nodded slowly. The captain is right. We have spent 2 centuries learning to survive in impossible places. They have spent 2 centuries growing fat and lazy on their thrones. The debate went on for hours. Some council members wanted to wait longer, to build up human strength before revealing themselves. Others argued that humanity was ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy. In the end, it was the discovery of the slave camps that decided the issue. The council voted unanimously. After 200 years of hiding, humanity would return to the galactic stage. But they would not announce themselves with diplomacy or grand speeches. They would begin with action. Webb was given command of humanity's first military operation since the exile. His target was Kethmoran itself, the fortress world that the consortium claimed could never be conquered. The human fleet that assembled for the mission was small by consortium standards. Just 50 ships carrying a total of 5,000 soldiers. But every ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, built with 2 centuries of hard-won knowledge. Sarah volunteered to guide the fleet to its target. As the silent running led the human ships towards Zephyrian space, she thought about the children playing in Haven's gardens. They deserved better than a life spent hiding in the shadows. It was time for the galaxy to remember that humanity existed. The attack on Kethmoran would begin humanity's return to the stars. But first, they would show the consortium what 200 years of exile had taught them. They had learned to survive anywhere. They had learned to build anything. They had learned to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen. Most importantly, they had learned that freedom was worth any price. The attack on Kethmoran began at exactly midnight station time. Admiral Marcus Webb watched from the bridge of his flagship as 50 human ships approached the most defended world in consortium space. The planet's massive defense guns tracked toward the approaching fleet, but they found nothing to shoot at. Every human ship was cloaked, invisible to both sensors and the naked eye. The Zephyrian defenders saw empty space where death was approaching. Webb had studied the fortress world's defenses for months. The shield generators were powerful but predictable. They created a solid barrier around the planet like a soap bubble made of energy. The Zephyrians thought this made them safe. They were wrong. Human scientists had learned to manipulate gravity itself during their exile in the dangerous regions around neutron stars. Webb's ships did not try to break through the shields. Instead, they bent space around themselves, slipping between the gaps in reality like ghosts walking through walls. The first the Zephyrians knew of the attack was when their defense satellites began exploding. Human Marines, trained in zero-gravity combat, had already boarded the stations and disabled them from within. The great guns that could destroy fleets fell silent one by one. On Kethmoran's surface, General Velkoth woke to alarms screaming throughout his command center. The Zephyrian military leader had defended this world for 50 years. He had never seen an attack like this. "Report!" Velkoth shouted at his communications officer. "Sir, we are under attack, but sensors show no enemy ships. Defense Grid 7 is offline. Grid 12 just went dark. We are losing defensive positions faster than we can count them." Velkoth stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Red warning lights marked destroyed defenses all across the planet. But his sensors showed nothing. No ships, no energy signatures, no indication of any attacking force. Then the lights went out. Human engineers had identified the planet's power grid during months of careful observation. While the Marines attacked military targets, technical teams struck at the infrastructure. Kethmoran's mighty fortress cities went dark as their power plants shut down one by one. In the chaos and darkness, Webb's ground forces landed. They moved through the blind and confused Zephyrian defenders like wolves among sheep. The aliens had grown soft during centuries of easy victories. They panicked when faced with an enemy they could not see or understand. The battle was over in 4 hours, not because the humans had destroyed everything, but because they had captured it. When the sun rose over Kethmoran, every major military installation was under human control. The Zephyrian garrison found themselves disarmed and surrounded, but still alive. This confused them more than anything else. General Velkoth stood in his own command center, now filled with strange creatures he had never seen before. The humans were smaller than Zephyrians, covered in hair like primitive animals, but their technology was clearly superior to anything in the consortium. A human officer approached Velkoth. She was young, with dark skin and calm eyes. When she spoke, her words were translated by a device that made perfect Zephyrian sounds. "General, My name is Colonel Maria Santos. I am accepting your surrender. Velkoth sputtered in rage. Surrender? To animals? I demand to know what species you represent. Who sent you? Santos smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. We represent humanity, General. The species your people tried to exterminate 200 years ago. We have returned. The blood drained from Velkoth's face. Like most consortium military officers, he knew the old stories about the human extinction. It was taught as a lesson about what happened to species that defied the consortium's will. Impossible, he whispered. Humans are extinct. We made sure of that. You made sure of nothing, Santos replied. You scattered us to the dark corners of the galaxy and assumed we would die quietly. That was your mistake. But the humans did not stop with Keth Moran. While Webb's fleet celebrated their victory, other human forces were moving throughout consortium space. Small teams of specialists appeared on mining worlds, factory planets, and trading stations. They moved like shadows, invisible until it was too late. On the Vorthak mining world of Xerion Prime, the workers woke up to find their overseers gone. The brutal guards who had beaten them for decades had simply vanished in the night. In their place were strange new beings who spoke of freedom and dignity. The Krillani slaves who worked Xerion's crystal mines could not believe what they were hearing. These humans offered them something no one had given them in centuries. A choice. You can leave, the human leader told the assembled workers. We have ships waiting to take you to safe worlds where you will never be slaves again. Or you can stay and help us build something better here. Either way, you are free. Most of the Krillani chose to stay. They had heard stories of human settlements where different species worked together as equals. It sounded too good to be true, but it was better than the life they had known. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. Human operatives had spent decades studying consortium society, learning its weaknesses. They knew which species were oppressed, which worlds were unhappy, which systems were ready for rebellion. The humans did not conquer these places. They liberated them. Captain Chen received her new orders while monitoring Zephyrian communication networks from her cloaked ship. The messages she intercepted showed growing panic among consortium leaders. Worlds were going dark. Supply lines were failing. Slave rebellions were spreading faster than they could be contained. Her mission was to infiltrate the consortium's capital itself, Nexus Prime. The massive space station had grown even larger in the 2 centuries since humanity's exile. It now housed billions of beings from across the galaxy. Most of them were workers and servants who kept the station running for their alien masters. Chen's ship approached the station using false identification codes that human intelligence had carefully crafted. To consortium sensors, the silent running appeared to be a routine supply vessel, carrying food from a farming world. Inside the station, Chen moved through crowds of different species. She wore a disguise that made her look like a Delthari merchant, complete with artificial scales and breathing apparatus. No one gave her a second glance. Her target was the station's central communication array. If she could access it, human technicians could take control of the consortium's entire information network. They would be able to monitor enemy movements, spread propaganda, and coordinate the growing rebellion. The communication center was heavily guarded, but the guards were watching for armies, not a single infiltrator. Chen used human stealth technology to slip past sensors and security cameras. She reached the main computer core without being detected. Installing the human virus took only minutes. The program was designed to spread slowly, copying itself throughout the consortium's networks without being noticed. Within weeks, human intelligence would have access to every major communication system in the galaxy. As Chen made her way back to her ship, she stopped to watch a news broadcast in one of the station's public areas. The consortium's official media was trying to downplay the attacks, calling them isolated incidents by unknown pirates. But Chen could see the fear in people's faces. Word was spreading through unofficial channels about the mysterious attackers who freed slaves and vanished into the darkness. Some called them ghosts. Others whispered about ancient enemies returning from the dead. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Humanity had survived its exile and grown strong in the shadows. Now they were fighting back, not for conquest, but for justice. The silent war continued for months. Human forces struck at consortium targets throughout the galaxy, always choosing their battles carefully. They avoided unnecessary casualties, focusing on military and government targets while protecting civilian populations. The psychological effect was devastating. Consortium leaders had ruled for thousands of years without serious challenge. They had grown arrogant, believing their own propaganda about being the guardians of galactic civilization. Now they faced an enemy they could not see, could not predict, and could not understand. Every day brought new reports of defeats. Worlds declared independence. Slave species threw off their chains. Trade routes collapsed as human saboteurs disrupted the economic systems that held the consortium together. In his private chambers on Nexus Prime, High Counselor Veltar stared at reports from across the galaxy. The same Veltar who had ordered humanity's extinction now faced the consequences of his ancient decision. His aide, a nervous Zephyrian named Keldan, tried to offer reassurance. "The attacks are scattered, my lord. They lack coordination. We can defeat them if we mobilize our full military strength." Veltar threw the reports across the room in rage. "You fool. Do you not see what is happening? This is not random piracy. This is war. And we are losing." The High Counselor walked to his window, looking out at the vast expanse of space around Nexus Prime. Somewhere in that darkness, humanity was planning its next move. For the first time in his long life, Veltar felt afraid. High Counselor Veltar believed he was safe aboard his personal flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive dreadnought was the pride of the Zephyrian fleet, armed with weapons that could crack planets and protected by shields that had never been breached. He was inspecting a mining colony in the outer rim when the impossible happened. Veltar stood on the bridge, watching his crew work at their stations. The colony below was having problems with worker productivity. Some of the slave species were becoming difficult to control. There had been reports of sabotage, missing equipment, and work slowdowns. "Deploy security teams to the surface," Veltar ordered. "Remind the workers what happens when they forget their place." The ship's captain, a veteran named Telmach, nodded and began giving orders. But before the security teams could launch, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. "What is that noise?" Veltar demanded. Telmach checked his instruments, confusion clear on his face. "Sir, the computer shows all systems normal, but the alarm indicates we are under attack." "By whom? I see no enemy ships." That was when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, bathing the bridge in red light. But something was wrong with the ship's artificial gravity. Objects began floating freely, as if the Eternal Dominion was drifting powerless in space. Then the walls started changing. Metal panels slid aside to reveal hidden passages. Figures in strange armor stepped onto the bridge from openings that had not existed moments before. Their weapons were unlike anything in the consortium arsenal, glowing with an inner light that hurt to look at. The bridge crew reached for their sidearms, but found them missing. Somehow, while they were distracted by the alarms and failing systems, every weapon on the bridge had been taken. The lead figure removed his helmet, revealing a face that Veltar had seen only in historical records. It was unmistakably human, though this specimen was far different from the primitive creatures he remembered. This human moved with quiet confidence, his eyes showing intelligence and determination. "High Counselor Veltar," the human said in perfect Zephyrian. "My name is Commander David Park. You are now a prisoner of the Human Colonial Authority." Veltar could not speak. His mind refused to accept what he was seeing. Humans were extinct. He had made certain of that 2 centuries ago, yet here one stood on his own bridge, having somehow captured the most powerful ship in the consortium fleet. "Impossible," Veltar finally whispered. "You are all dead. We destroyed your species." Commander Park smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "You destroyed our world, Counselor. But you failed to destroy us. We have been waiting a long time for this conversation." The other humans on the bridge worked with calm efficiency, taking control of the ship's systems. Veltar watched in horror as they demonstrated technology far beyond anything the consortium possessed. They moved through the ship's computer networks like they had built them themselves. "How?" Veltar asked. "How did you get aboard? This ship has the best defenses in the galaxy." "Your best defenses are 200 years old," Park replied. "We have learned much since then. Your shields cannot stop us. Your sensors cannot see us. Your weapons cannot touch us." Park gestured to a view screen that showed the space around the Eternal Dominion. At first, Veltar saw nothing unusual. Then the human ships began appearing, their cloaking systems shutting down one by one. There were dozens of them, sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. They had surrounded the consortium flagship without being detected. Any one of them could have destroyed the Eternal Dominion, but they had chosen capture over destruction. Veltar was taken to what had been his own private quarters. The luxurious cabin had been converted into a holding cell, though the humans had not mistreated him. They provided food, water, and medical attention. They even allowed him to keep his personal belongings. It was, in many ways, more mercy than he had shown to humanity. Days passed before Veltar met his final captor. He was taken to a conference room where a human woman waited for him. She was older than the soldiers, with gray hair and lines around her eyes, but those eyes held a hardness that made Veltar uncomfortable. "High Counselor," she said, rising from her chair. "I am Director Elena Vasquez of the Human Colonial Authority. We have much to discuss." Vasquez activated a holographic display that filled the room with images. Veltar saw star maps showing hundreds of worlds, space stations larger than cities, and fleets of ships that dwarfed anything in consortium space. "This is what humanity built while you thought we were dead," Vasquez explained. 400 worlds, 2,000 space habitats, and a population of over 3 billion. We survived in the places you considered worthless. We thrived in the regions you feared to explore. The images showed human cities built inside asteroids, research stations orbiting black holes, and farms growing in the radiation shadow of dying stars. It was impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. "You wanted us forgotten," Vasquez continued. "That was your greatest gift to us. While you grew comfortable and stagnant, we faced challenges that forced us to innovate. Every day was a struggle for survival. Every problem required new solutions." Veltar studied the displays with growing dread. The technology shown was decades ahead of anything the consortium possessed. Weapons that manipulated gravity itself, ships that could become invisible at will, energy sources that tapped into the fabric of spacetime. "What do you want?" Veltar asked quietly. "Justice," Vasquez replied. "For 2 centuries we have watched your consortium oppress the galaxy. You enslave species that refuse to submit. You hoard resources while others starve. You call yourselves civilized while acting like barbarians." She changed the display to show images that made Veltar flinch. Secret prison camps, slave markets, planets stripped bare by mining operations. The dark side of consortium rule that was hidden from public view. "We know about all of it," Vasquez said. "Every crime, every atrocity, every life destroyed in the name of your precious order. We have been watching and recording for decades." Veltar felt sick as he recognized locations and operations he had personally authorized. The humans had evidence of war crimes spanning centuries. If this information became public, it would destroy the consortium's reputation forever. "You have seen what we can do," Vasquez continued. "We took your strongest fortress without losing a single soldier. We captured your most powerful ship without firing a shot. We have infiltrated your capital, your military, and your government. We could destroy the consortium whenever we choose." "Then why do you not?" Veltar asked. "Because destruction is your way, not ours. We remember what it feels like to watch our world burn. We will not become the monsters you are." Vasquez deactivated the display and sat back down. "The consortium is finished, Counselor. Your member species are abandoning the Alliance as fast as they can file the paperwork. Your slave worlds have declared independence. Your trade networks have collapsed." She was right. Even from his cell, Veltar had heard the reports. The Draconi Confederation had withdrawn from the consortium after 5,000 years of membership. The Corvo systems had declared neutrality. Even some Zephyrian colonies were considering independence. "What will replace it?" Veltar asked. "Something better," Vasquez replied. "We call it the Human Galactic Commonwealth, a voluntary association of free worlds where every species has an equal voice, where cooperation replaces domination, where strength comes from unity, not oppression." The door to the conference room opened and Commander Park entered. "Director, we have received word from Nexus Prime. The Consortium Council has agreed to meet with our representatives." Vasquez nodded. "Thank you, Commander." She turned back to Veltar. "Your former colleagues want to negotiate. They hope to salvage something from the wreckage of their empire." "And will you negotiate?" Veltar asked. "We will listen to their surrender," Vasquez replied. "The age of consortium rule is over. The only question now is whether the transition will be peaceful or violent." Veltar slumped in his chair, finally understanding the magnitude of what was happening. The galaxy he had known for his entire life was ending. The humans he had tried to exterminate had returned to claim their place among the stars. But they had not returned as conquerors. They had returned as liberators, offering a better way of life to species that had known only oppression under consortium rule. It was, Veltar realized, exactly what humanity had offered 200 years ago when they first made contact. The consortium could have had peace and cooperation then. Instead, they had chosen fear and hatred. Now they would pay the price for that choice. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity held all the cards. The battle for Nexus Prime began with a message broadcast across the galaxy in 1,000 languages. People of the consortium, Director Elena Vasquez spoke from the bridge of her flagship. For too long you have lived under the rule of those who see you as servants, not citizens. Today that ends. Today, you choose your own future. Around Nexus Prime, the largest space battle in galactic history was about to unfold. The consortium had gathered every ship they could find, 10,000 vessels representing centuries of military might. Dreadnoughts the size of cities floated alongside smaller warships, creating a wall of metal and energy around their capital station. Facing them were just 50 human ships. The difference in numbers should have made the outcome obvious. But Admiral Marcus Webb, commanding the human fleet from his flagship Retribution, was not worried about numbers. He had fought in the outer dark for 200 years where a single mistake meant death. His crews had been tested in ways the consortium could never imagine. All ships, this is Admiral Webb, he announced over the fleet communication system. Remember why we are here. Remember what they took from us. Today, we reclaim our place in the galaxy. The consortium fleet moved first, thousands of ships advancing in the traditional formation they had used for centuries. Massive guns charged with energy that could shatter moons. Missiles launched in clouds thick enough to block out the stars. The human response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Webb's ships did not retreat or try to avoid the incoming fire. Instead, they seemed to step sideways through space itself, slipping between dimensions like ghosts passing through walls. The consortium's weapons struck empty space where the human vessels had been moments before. Then the humans attacked. Each human ship carried weapons developed in the most dangerous regions of space. Gravity cannons that could tear apart matter at the atomic level, energy beams that bent space-time around their targets, quantum torpedoes that exploded in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But more devastating than any weapon was human tactics. Webb's ships moved in patterns no consortium admiral could predict, appearing and disappearing throughout the enemy fleet. They struck at weak points, disabled key systems, and vanished before return fire could reach them. Consortium ships began falling not from destruction, but from electronic warfare that shut down their systems. Human hackers trained in networks built around neutron stars easily penetrated the aliens' primitive computer defenses. One by one, enemy vessels went dark as their crews lost control of their own ships. Admiral Thakmor, commanding the consortium fleet from his massive flagship, watched his formation crumble in disbelief. In 50 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. His ships were being defeated not by superior firepower, but by technology he could not understand. All vessels, concentrate fire on the human flagship, he ordered desperately. 100 consortium ships turned their guns on Webb's vessel, enough firepower to destroy a small moon focused on a single target. The energy discharge was visible from light years away. When the light faded, the Retribution was undamaged. The human ship's shields had not just absorbed the attack, but seemed to redirect it, sending waves of energy harmlessly into space. Webb opened a communication channel to the consortium fleet. Admiral Thakmor, this is Admiral Webb. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your tactics are centuries out of date. I offer you one chance to surrender before more lives are lost. Thakmor's response was to order another attack, this time with everything his fleet had remaining. The space around Nexus Prime lit up like a miniature star as thousands of weapons fired simultaneously. The result was the same. Human ships danced between the energy beams, their defensive systems turning aside attacks that should have vaporized them instantly. The consortium fleet exhausted its ammunition without scoring a single hit. Then Webb showed them what human weapons could really do. A single shot from the Retribution's main gun struck Thakmor's flagship. The beam passed through the alien ship's shields as if they did not exist. then surgically disabled every major system without harming the crew. In seconds, the most powerful ship in the consortium fleet became a helpless hulk drifting in space. "Your flagship is disabled but intact," Webb announced. "Your crew is alive and unharmed. This is more mercy than your people showed humanity 2 centuries ago." Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships systematically disabled the consortium fleet without destroying it. When the battle ended 3 hours later, 10,000 enemy vessels floated powerless in space, their crews alive but defeated. It was the most one-sided victory in galactic history. On Nexus Prime, the station's leaders watched the battle's end with growing terror. High Counselor Zenthar, who had replaced the captured Veltar, stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. "They could have destroyed us all," he whispered to his aide. "Why did they not?" The answer came in the form of a transmission from Director Vasquez. Her face appeared on screens throughout the station, speaking directly to every being aboard. "Citizens of Nexus Prime," she began, "the consortium's military has been defeated, but we are not here as conquerors. We are here as liberators. Every being on this station is free to choose their own path." What happened next surprised everyone, including the humans. Across the massive station, beings of dozens of species began celebrating. Workers who had served the consortium for generations threw down their tools and danced in the corridors. Slaves who had never known freedom wept with joy, but it was not universal. Many of the consortium's ruling class barricaded themselves in their luxury quarters, terrified of what liberation might mean for those who had profited from oppression. Director Vasquez led a small team to the station's government sector. She was accompanied by representatives from many of the species that had joined humanity's cause. Freed Krillani slaves walked beside human soldiers. Former consortium subjects marched with their liberators. High Counselor Zenthar met them in the Great Council chamber where humanity had once been condemned to extinction. The irony was not lost on anyone present. "What are your terms?" Zenthar asked without preamble. "There are no terms," Vasquez replied. "The consortium is dissolved. Its member species are free to govern themselves as they choose. Its slave worlds are independent. Its ruling class will face justice for crimes against sentient beings. And what of us? What of the worlds that supported consortium rule?" Vasquez considered the question carefully. "Those who committed crimes will be tried fairly and punished according to law. Those who simply lived under the old system will be free to build new lives under the new order. We do not believe in punishing entire species for the actions of their leaders." Over the following months, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had thought possible. The human galactic commonwealth grew rapidly as former consortium worlds applied for membership. But it was not the empire of conquest many expected. Instead of replacing one dictatorship with another, humanity created something genuinely new. The Commonwealth was governed by a council where every member species had an equal voice, regardless of their size or power. Decisions were made by consensus, not force. Former slaves became citizens with full rights. Oppressed minorities found protection under Commonwealth law. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had been enemies for centuries. Scientific knowledge was shared openly, leading to breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Captain Sarah Chen, now serving as Director of Colonial Affairs, stood in her office on New Geneva, humanity's new capital world. Through her window, she could see beings of dozens of species working together on construction projects. Children of different races played together in the streets below. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. The communication was from long-range sensors at the edge of the galaxy. The sensors had detected something troubling, signs of another galactic civilization, one that appeared to be expanding aggressively toward Commonwealth space. Chen studied the data with interest rather than fear. The old consortium would have panicked at news of a potential threat. They would have begun preparing for defensive war, building weapons and fortifications. But humanity had learned different lessons from their exile. They had learned that strength came from unity, not domination, that innovation thrived under pressure, that the greatest civilizations were built on cooperation, not conquest. If this new civilization proved hostile, the Commonwealth would be ready. Not just with weapons and shields, but with something the galaxy had never seen before, a truly united alliance of free peoples working together for the common good. Chen activated the station-wide communication system. "Attention all Commonwealth citizens. This is Director Chen with an important announcement. Long-range sensors have detected signs of another major civilization approaching our territory. We do not yet know their intentions. She paused, thinking of all the species that now called the Commonwealth home. Humans and aliens working side by side, building something greater than any of them could achieve alone. Whatever challenges await us, we will face them together. We are no longer scattered tribes fighting for scraps. We are a community of free beings united by common purpose. We have turned the galaxy's greatest outcasts into its greatest hope.